Iranian security forces have opened fire on crowds near Tehran marking the 40th day of mourning for a woman, Hadis Najafi, who was shot dead while protesting. BBC.
Here's a summary of the article.
Iranian security forces have opened fire on crowds near Tehran marking the 40th day of mourning for a woman shot dead while protesting, witnesses say. BBC Persian also obtained a video showing security forces opening fire on a street and another from near the cemetery in which a gunshot could be heard. Activists reported on Thursday morning that roads to the Bahesht Sakineh cemetery had been closed by security forces in anticipation of protests. Other footage appeared to show security forces firing tear gas at protesters, as well as a police box and police cars on fire. Last week, security forces opened fire at crowds marking the 40th day of mourning for Mahsa Amini, the young woman whose death in police custody initially sparked the protests, and for Nika Shakarami, a teenage girl who was killed during a protest. Norway-based Iran Human Rights said on Wednesday that 277 people, including 40 children and 24 women, had been killed by security forces in a violent crackdown launched in an attempt to quell the protests. In a separate development in northwest Iran on Thursday, Kurdish human rights group Hengor reported that security forces had arrested the father of Komar Daroftate, a 16-year-old boy who was allegedly shot by security forces at a protest in the city of Piranshaah over the weekend.
This post received a score of 28,000, with an upvote ratio of 96%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
All those protesters are so incredibly brave. Can't imagine having to make the choice to go out to protest for your freedom, knowing you might not make it home.
Well, their economy, rights, and future in general area shit. Might as well fight for a different future than live with your chains for the rest of your and your children's lives.
I still think it's easier to say that than to actually put your life on the line.
Desperation will make you do things you never thought you would. I mean, in Iran inflation was 45% last year. Imagine your money was all of a sudden worth half as much and you could barely afford to eat. Plus you have a brutal regime that is killing people for things like listening to Western music or not wearing a hijab. These people yearn to breath free. Unfortunately, Iranians traded oppression from the Shah to more brutal oppression of radical Islamists.
It doesn't change anything, but just as a nitpick, 45% inflation would mean your money is worth 31% less, not 45% less. Fractions are dumb and counterintuitive.
Appreciate the correction. Fractions are dumb but they're important.
The thing is, in Iranian and Persian mourning culture they mourn on the 3, 7, 40, and 365 day. And if someone gets killed the process starts over. Every time a protester dies, it starts up another protest wave.
This pattern of mourning is what toppled the Shah.
I am so hopeful for the Iranian people. What a horrible regime. I can't imagine any of the women in my life having to deal with this, let alone the rest of society. I feel lucky to live in a country with basic freedoms.
Greater than I feel lucky to live in a country with basic freedoms. Yes, although those of us in nations like the USA and UK have been fortunate to not have that problem, and still have functional democracies, civil participation each and every day is still no guarantee. In the USA, 30 years of inactivity and lack of civic participation has allowed cynical opportunists and religious zealots to hijack huge parts of our democracy. They can't do that if most of the citizenry was engaged and active.
Wasn't it also active civil participation that led to this technically? The Islamic Revolution wasn't done by just a few people.
1984 is Orwell's best-known work, but really it ought to be Animal Farm or Down and Out in Paris and London.
Nuran.
Iranian security forces? Idiots with guns.
Unfortunately, you don't need to be smart to fire a gun into a crowd of unarmed protesters.
You do need to be some kind of sick fuck though.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.